It's Katie and Jenna and Katie with Friday Night Cheers.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Friday Night Tears. I'm Katie,
And I'm Jenna.
and let's get into it.
All right, awesome. So today's episode is a little bit different than our past four. Isn't that right, Katie?
That is right, and we are pretty excited. As we've been kind of going through these tiers and different genres, there's been quite a few bands so far that we've really wanted to kind of explore further.
Like a deep dive.
A deep dive, if you will. Yeah. And so we kind of decided that every 5 episodes we would pick one of the bands that we discussed on an earlier episode and do an episode just about them.
Correct. And
So
you want to announce it? I think maybe people already know.
well, if you guys saw our Instagram, Jenna posted one of the set lists. So, and if you've been listening, you probably know who we're going to pick because it always comes back to them.
Always comes back to My Chemical Romance.
My Chemical Romance.
My Chem.
We are so excited to kind of just spend the entire episode talking about them. I think we both, as we were prepping for this, were like, oh my gosh, like, we just love them so much. We learned so much.
Yeah, I was going to say there was a lot of things that we learned just because you don't know everything about a band or the albums or what made, the concept behind it. And so it was really exciting to kind of deep dive on this.
Yeah, so the format's going to be a little bit different. We are still going to tier. We're going to tier their albums, and we hope that you learn as much as we did I this is one of those bands that I really thought, I mean, they are one of my favorite bands, but I guess I just didn't realize how much I didn't know about them. And I went to Jenna's house on the 4th of July, and we made turkey burgers and dinner, and we just kind of listened to My Chem all night and just researched, and it was so much fun.
I had a blast. Thank you for coming over and spending America's Worst Day with me.
Yes, you're welcome. Yeah, we're not a fan of America right now, but we are a fan of My Chem.
And we are a fan of hanging out and doing non-American things.
Yes, and we are a fan of our dogs getting along.
They
also.
were such good boys and girls.
They were. They were amazing.
We took them to the park and a long walk, and then they napped while we were researching, so that was really good.
I think the park was that was a good call.
Yeah, I agree.
For sure. All right, Jenna, why don't you, before we kind of dive into what we learned and kind of our new segments, why don't you kind of share and remind the people of what their stats were from last time?
Sure, love to. Okay, so from our last, actually not our last episode, it was our first episode.
First episode!
I don't know why I thought it was the last one. It seems so long ago.
I know.
But from a recap from our episode 1 on the emo tiers, My Chemical Romance was tiered as a tier 1. If that is not obvious to everyone, they are obviously a tier 1 band. They had 18 singles and 4 main albums. They've had several re-releases, which we did not cover those albums, and then their live albums as well, which their latest one was in 2016 of that live album. They have 11 million Spotify listeners and most likely growing because of new developments in their I guess what they're doing as a band, and then 1.2 million Instagram followers. And that's the recap.
I was so excited, because I pretty much re-listened to every album while we did this, and I was listening to the live albums too, and oh my gosh, it just really made me feel like I was right there with them, and they're the audio quality was so good, and I was screaming it. I was so excited. I love live albums.
Me too. I remember when 97X radio here in Tampa Bay, used to be 97X, would do the Next Big Thing or Warped Tour live singles on the radio.
Oh yeah. Maybe we should start the new 97X. Maybe that's our calling, because it's just not the same anymore.
It's not the same.
For those of you that know what you know.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
All right, Katie, get us into the fast facts.
Oh, okay. If for any of you office ladies fans out there. We
We didn't steal it.
we didn't steal it, but I just kind of want to be like Jenna when she does her fast facts. So
Jenna Fisher for reference.
yeah. Oh yeah. Jenna Fisher. Yes. So just a couple of fast facts. The year that this band started was in 2001. They have 4 core members. Gerard Way is the lead singer. Ray Toro is the lead guitarist and backup vocals. Mikey Way is the bassist. And Frank Iero is the rhythm guitarist and also doing backup vocals. They've also had a couple of, if you notice, I didn't name any drummers. They had 2 drummers. One that was with them from 2001 and 2004, and then one that was with them 2004 to 2010. So they don't have a drummer right now. They haven't had one since 2010, which is crazy. So they just kind of pick like random touring musicians to go on tour with them for drumming. So very interesting. I like how like after 12 years they're like, yeah, I guess we just don't need a drummer. Like
Technology has changed, so I guess maybe you
Very
don't need
true.
one. They could just borrow Travis though. He drums for everyone.
Oh, for sure. Oh my God, he would love that. Okay, they originated from Newark, New Jersey,
Which I've been to.
Oh,
Yeah.
me too.
Really?
I went to the airport there. Yeah.
Oh.
Actually, my dad's from New Jersey, but
Oh.
not Newark.
Okay.
I don't remember. Sorry, Dad. And then their genres are obviously emo, and then I would just say like alternative rock, like, you know.
Didn't you say that the band doesn't like to be known as emo either?
Yeah, I read like 7 articles that that Gerard Way was like, stop calling us emo, and I was like, ooh,
Well, I think
whoops.
it's because emo is definitely a term of the past now, and so maybe he doesn't want to be associated with that era.
Yeah, but have you heard some of your songs, buddy? Like,
They're emo.
they're emo. So those were just some fast facts, and then there were so many interesting facts, but I just kind of pulled 3 like random facts that I thought were pretty cool. Jenny, you want to share this first one? I know you were like blown away by this.
I loved this fast fact. So Gerard Way, the lead singer, is married to the bass player of Mindless Self-Indulgence, Lindsay, and they have a daughter named Bandit. I was definitely shocked because it's just one of those things where, like, how did I not know this? Mindless Self-Indulgent was one of my favorite bands in high school, and I guess I never thought these 2 people would cross paths. So, and Bandit's the coolest name ever for a kid.
I know, and I love like because MSI, like their style is so different than My Chemical Romance, but just God, imagine just like rocking out with them in the car. I wonder what they listen to. Like, I wonder like what she thinks about My Chemical Romance, because like Mindless Self-Indulgence is pretty, like, I would say they're pretty hardcore. Like,
they're
you know-
definitely a hard rock, yeah.
yeah, like, so
Almost
love
like
that.
I wanted to say goth rock, but I realized they're not, but they have a goth vibe to them.
For sure. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. Another one that I knew this, but then I forgot about it, and I
Me
also
too.
blew Jenna's mind with this one. Again, Gerard Way wrote the comic book series, The Umbrella Academy, which has now turned into a very popular Netflix show that Jenna was just telling me about 3 days ago. She was like, you have to watch it. You have to watch it. And I was like, did you know that he wrote the comics? And she was like, I'm done. Like, I'm just done.
You know, for some reason, I thought I knew that, and maybe I didn't. And then, like, you told me, and I was like, and then my mind was blown. It's just one of those things where I was obsessed with the show, and now I know why.
And didn't you say like the soundtrack of the show is really good too?
The soundtrack for the Umbrella Academy is incredible. It has a mixture of the old rock and new rock and some hippie vibes, and just like really good. Like when they play the song during a scene, it just makes sense. I don't know how else to describe that, but whoever did that was amazing.
Well, now we know it has Gerard Way's seal of approval. So.
And he wrote some singles for that show too. If you go on like Spotify, you can find some of his solo stuff on there.
Wow. Okay. And then the last kind of interesting fact that I thought was cool is that the same costume designer that Tim Burton uses for all of his movies, her name is Colleen Atwood. She designed the costumes for the Black Parade.
You know, that one makes a lot of sense now.
I know, I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense.
Love that.
Yeah. All right, so moving on to our next little section here. We're kind of going to start with just how the band formed. Again, gosh, so interesting. So apparently Gerard Way and their old drummer formed the band in 2001. So none of the other members that are currently in the band were in it originally. They formed right after the 9/11 attacks. And the reason that Gerard Way wanted to start a band is because he lived in New Jersey, right near where the attacks happened. And I guess they affected him so much that he decided life was too short. And he was a comic book artist and a writer. And he kind of had secretly always wanted to start a band. So he just decided, screw it. Let's start a band. I could get bombed, tomorrow. So...
I'm glad he did then. Not glad about 9/11, but I'm glad he decided to start a band.
Yes, follow your dreams. So then after they started the band, they recruited the guitarist, Ray Toro, for the simple fact that Gerard Way has decided he cannot play the guitar and sing at the same time. We love a man that can admit his capabilities, and I don't think I could do that either. Then, now they had a guitarist, and then Mikey, who is Gerard's brother, was kind of, obviously excited that his brother was starting a band. So he quit his job at Barnes & Noble and dropped out of college and joined the band. And then after they did a couple demos, they met Frank, who is my personal favorite member of the band, just because I had a crush on him. He was in a band called Pensy Prep. And after they split, he joined My Chemical Romance 2 days before they were going to record their first album.
And I bet he's glad he joined.
I'm sure of it. He just had, imagine, he had no time to, get to know them, feel out the vibe. It was just all right, you're starting on Monday. Oh, and we're recording our album.
Wow. Just
insane. So then they recorded their first album, and as we'll talk about in a second, another kind of thing I wanted to mention about their inception and how they gained their popularity is, and I'm sure a lot of bands did this, but after recording their first album, they offered all their music online for free through Pure Volume and MySpace, which is kind of what brought them their initial fan base, which is something interesting as we go down to talk about the tiers about their album sales for the first album. I wonder if that's why it was so low.
That could make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, the internet was still up and coming. Things have just changed.
For sure. Yeah. So that's kind of how the band started.
Okay, so let's get into where the band is currently and maybe the future. So they have a reunion tour right now scheduled, and it's underway of all the events throughout the U.S. I believe they've already done some European tours earlier this year, and now they're in the U.S. For the remainder of the year. And correct me if I'm wrong, it was kind of hard to tell online. And then they're heading back into the international tour in 2023. But they've essentially been on tour from 2019 to now, essentially. And I say that very lightly because COVID definitely took a pause in their tour, where they had to cancel a lot of their scheduled events between this time. So although online it says from 2019 to 2023, I don't think they've been touring that entire time.
Yeah, I definitely think they had to stop. I remember they announced their tour in 2020, and I think they were only doing the West Coast, and I was seriously considering going, and then COVID hit, and I think now I don't think they're doing a lot of solo shows though.
No.
They're doing festivals.
When I say tour, they're just latching onto festivals or quick little music shows and being a headliner somewhere. So they're not really doing their own tour. They're just kind of playing around.
Well, when they do, we'll be there.
I would love to be at one of their shows. I saw online that ticket prices were kind of insane, so not ideal.
Let's get a sponsor for Friday Night Tears.
To go see My Chem. So My Chemical Romance is also back with their latest release, which we mentioned in our first episode, The Foundations of Decay. That came out in May 2022. So that, I believe, is when our first episode dropped. Is that correct? I think we had the emo episode like right after that release came out.
Yeah, it was. I think like we were planning it, and then like the same week that album came out, or that
the
song
single,
came out.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is an amazing single. If you have not listened to it yet, I definitely recommend you listen to it. It's so different than their other songs, but yet still has that core My Chemical Romance sound to it.
Definitely. I think we should put that. I'm gonna highlight it. I think we should put that in our
playlist.
If it's not already, yeah, because you love that song.
I do love that song. It's a
Yeah.
good one. And then additionally, Gerard Way has posted 4 new solo songs on SoundCloud and released Here Comes the End from his Netflix series, The Umbrella Academy, which I mentioned before. He had some solo stuff coming out because of the show. And I think fans believe he could make a cameo in maybe the future seasons of the show. So that'd be pretty cool. If not
That would
already. I don't know if I don't think I've seen him, but...
No, I don't think he has. And I guess that makes sense, like, why they're kind of... Obviously, they're still interested in making music because they just put out a release. But, like, I don't know what the other members are doing, but it sounds like he's probably pretty busy, like, trying to make sure that his show... Like, not his show, but that the show that's being created about his work, like... Imagine how stressful that would be. Like,
Yeah.
you want to make sure it, like, maintains, like, its artistic, you know, like... creativity and like, you know, how he intended it to be. So I'm sure he's pretty busy with that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's kind of what they're doing right now. And hopefully they make some more music in the future, because that would mean that they are going to do a big tour and we really want to go see them.
Of course we do. With that being said, let's take a quick break before we get into those albums.
Awesome. All right, and we are back from our break. We are ready to kind of dive into these albums. So
Yes.
the way that this is going to work is we pretty much are just going to go album by album. We're not obviously going to do like the re-releases or the lives. We're just going to stick with their 4 studio albums. And we each listen to all of the albums, and we've got some thoughts. And then at the end, we're going to tier the albums.
And let's just say it was a great listen. If anyone has a road trip coming up or needs a story to listen to, definitely listen to all 4 of their albums.
Yeah, that's something that... Oh, I guess we'll talk about it. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so the first album is called I Brought You My Bullets, You Brought Me Your Love. It was released in 2002, so very shortly after the band kind of came about.
Wait, Katie. Their album title couldn't be more emo, and he goes, "Don't call us emo."
Yeah, don't call me emo. I know. And then it's funny because then like their next album is like even more emo. You know,
Even
it's
more.
fine. So 2002. The album was produced by the lead singer of Thursday, which, if you recall, is another one of our emo bands that we covered in episode 1.
Weren't they like the veteran emo band?
Yeah, they're like the OG for sure. So I love that the lead singer of Thursday kind of took them under their wing and helped them produce the album. And, you know, there's all these connections that we're learning that we didn't know about when we first did that episode. So
Yeah.
super cool. Something that I thought was kind of funny as I was researching is apparently the album took a really, really, really long time to record. Like they had to redo like every song like multiple times because Gerard Way had like a really bad like tooth infection, and so
Yikes.
he couldn't sing that that well. So
Yeah, I can't imagine.
yeah, like, hey guys, this is our first album, we gotta kill it. Oh man, but like I got this thing going on. Like, not the right time.
Not the vibe.
Not the vibe. So as Jenna kind of alluded to, and this is something that I think we both kind of learned as we researched this album, along with all of their other ones, are pretty much like concept albums that have a really intricate story and are meant to be listened to cover to cover. which is super cool. So this album kind of features two Bonnie and Clyde type characters who are gunned down in the desert. And yeah, it's pretty crazy. The story kind of continues on into the next album,
which I'll explain a little bit more about.
Yeah, so just know for this one, we got a boy and a girl, and
they're on the run.
They're on the run in the desert. Another kind of theme in the album, which this is actually, I love this album, but another theme that I was kind of aware of is the idea of vampires. It's a recurring theme in this album. They talk a lot about the actual like creature of a vampire, and then they also talk about the idea of like somebody trying to like seek and exploit and like suck the life out of others. So that's another, you know.
So literally and figuratively.
Yes, they love vampires.
Okay,
emo. I know. We don't want to be emo. Okay.
Okay, wait. To be fair, we're only making fun of them because we love them.
Oh no, we love them. But you are emo. Like, sorry. Overall, the album, obviously, as we mentioned with the Bonnie and Clyde and the vampires and just the title, it's extremely dark in their lyrics and also the sound. And their sound is very raw. It's very like unpolished, edgy, which as we've kind of learned throughout this podcast so far, that's pretty standard for like a band's first album.
It's always really raw and kind of a little bit all over the place.
Yeah, like they don't know what their sound, they don't know what they want their sound to be like yet. This is definitely the darkest of their 4 albums, both in sound and in like content. Apparently, while this album was being recorded, Gerard Way had a pretty big addiction issue to both alcohol and pills. So there's a lot of reference to that in the album too, which is pretty dark. But he actually got sober 2 years later. So good for him.
Oh, yay.
Yeah.
But you know what I was just just thinking that you mentioned that this is one of the darkest albums, but this was right after 9/11, like you mentioned. So maybe it's dark because they're in a dark place.
For sure. Oh, I'm sure. That's a really good point. Yeah. Speaking of 9/11, one of their songs on the album, Skylines and Turnstiles, actually has nothing to do with vampires or two people on the run. It's actually about the 9/11 attacks. One of the lyrics that I found interesting was, "This broken city sky, like butane on my skin, stolen from my eyes. Hello, angel, tell me, where are you? Tell me where we go from here." So he literally wrote a song just about the 9/11 attacks. So you can tell that really influenced him. Yeah. But overall, people really liked this album. The average listener and critic gave it a 3 out of 5, which is pretty good for a first album.
Yeah.
I've actually seen a lot of new bands, you know, their new albums that just get like trash ratings. Mm-hmm. So I really like this album. I don't think this is the first, I'm trying to think. I think the first songs I heard were off of the next album, but I very quickly found this album and I really like it. I listen to it kind of just on my, in my spare time now. Some of my favorite songs, Demolition Lovers is probably my favorite. Drowning Lessons, Honey, This Mirror Isn't Big Enough for the Two of Us, and then Vampires Will Never Hurt You. Those are my songs.
Awesome. So I also really liked Vampires Will Never Hurt You. Demolition Lovers, I think, was their, in my opinion, their best song on the album. And then Early Sunsets over Maroneville. Maroneville. Yeah, I think that's how you say it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So that was their first album. And just it only gets better from here.
It actually does only get better, because now we're on to 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. For most of us in our age will know this album, and truly this is what we were talking about in our first episode, is where the emo came from. This album was released in 2004, so shortly after their first album, because their first one was in 2002. So they did so well. 2 years later, they had another one.
Yeah, they were like, we got something here. Let's keep it going.
Let's keep it going. But
I love.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like, this album cover is so iconic. Like,
Oh,
anyone,
the guy and the girl.
yeah, like anyone knows. Oh yeah, huh?
From the desert.
Interesting. Yeah, we didn't know that back in the day. But yeah, like anyone, even if you weren't like into this kind of music, I feel like anyone knew that like image and just knew that of who this band was. Like they were really big at this point, like when they released this album.
Exactly. And this band was the first release to feature their rhythm guitarist, Frank, on every single track, as well as the final release for their drummer, Matt, who would later be replaced by Bob Breyer. It was a certified platinum less than a year after its release. That's insane. And then sold over 3 million copies in the U.S., which was included me and you.
Yes, that is insane. And I love that, like, Matt, the drummer, was just like, yeah, we're done here, I guess. Like, okay, buddy, bye.
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 Which was a mistake because it only got better from there. Musically, Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge has been described as alternative rock, emo, pop punk, post-hardcore, and punk rock. I don't really see the pop punk, but I guess it may be some of their songs.
I think some of them on this one are. Let me see. Pull up the track listing really quick.
It's just for me, I thought it was more maybe emo and alternative rock, and I guess some punk rock. But for me, pop punk was more upbeat and had that, like you said, the gang vocals. I don't feel like that was happening here.
The only song I'm looking at the track listing, the only song that I can see kind of the pop punk is "Give 'Em Hell, Kid."
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, agree. I agree with you.
But it's okay. Everyone's entitled to their opinions, and they can be in every genre. This album has also been compared to The Misfits, AFI, and of course Thursday, who helped produce their first album. So they definitely had some emo vibes from AFI, and then some punk vibes from The Misfits, who is another great band.
Yeah, I love that.
Gerard Way has referred his first single, "I'm Not Okay, I Promise," as a self-help pop song, which I didn't think that's what it'd be referred to, but I can see that now, that it's a self-help song. And go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I can totally see that song helped me through a lot of dark times.
Yeah.
So.
And then their album opener, Helena, has been referred to as the album highlight and a smash hit.
So good, dude. That song is
smash
so
hit.
good.
I agree, though. When you turned on VH1 or MTV, it was like the video was always on.
Legit. So good.
But speaking of the concept and the story that Katie alluded to earlier, so this album will be described as that story of the man and the woman that Katie was talking about. And they were separated by death in a gunfight in the desert. And he goes to hell only to realize that the devil telling him that she's alive still. And the devil says he can be with her again if he brings the devil the souls of 1,000 evil men, and the man agrees to do it. And so the devil hands him a gun. That was the idea behind the concept, and the record ended up being much more about loss and real life than anything. So I would say it was a really good split in the album based on the concept of that story, and then the idea of loss in life.
That's like 0 to 100. Like the first album is just like, oh yeah, like they're just in the desert, they're on the run, and then like the second album, they're like, yeah, now the devil's involved, and you have to go bring me 1,000 souls. Like what?
Okay, but imagine now listening to the song Helena, and now that makes so much more sense.
Oh no, I'm definitely listening to both albums and like I'm gonna try to keep that in
together.
mind.
Yeah,
Yes.
piece together the story.
Yeah.
I would love that. That should be a comic book for him. He should have made that based on his songs.
I know, but and like I love that he was a writer because that makes so much sense. Like just why his lyrics are so good and why his storytelling is so good, because he was a writer first and then became a musician. A lot of the time, like people have the skills of being a musician and then they're kind of forced to learn how to write songs.
Or they have people write songs for them.
Yeah. So he's just like the total package.
So, the legacy lives on with this album. New Music Express listed this album as one of the 20 emo albums that have resolutely stood the test of time. In 2016, Rolling Stone declared Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge the 10th greatest emo album out of 40. Out of 40 albums, I guess, is only you can have. And then saying that this wasn't just a concept record, it was a concept sequel, which is true. Expanding the small screen story of the 2002s. I brought you my bullets, you brought me your love into a big budget production. Completing with the life and death concept, Helena, the biting kiss-offs, I'm Not Okay, and a series of dramatic music videos that made them the MTV stars that they were when we were growing up. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, their song that just came out, and then the 45 article declared I'm Not Okay, I Promise, the greatest emo track of all time. So they're trending.
That music video, like I can see it in my head that I'm Not Okay, like they're in the school and like I'll never forget, like, because that's when I started falling in love with Frank Iero. He's oh my god, so gorgeous. He just has like his little button-up shirt and his tie's kind of loose and he's sitting on the steps and I'm like, you are everything I want in a man. Like I love him.
He was a cutie.
So iconic.
All right, so some of our favorite songs for me that included Helena. Of course, I mentioned that on the episode 1, so still true to this day. The Ghost of You, I'm Not Okay, I Promise. Of course, like everyone said, the greatest emo track of all time, and then Cemetery Drive.
Love it. I found it so hard for this to pick my favorite song because I just love all the songs.
Yeah.
But I love To the End. I love You Know What They Do to Guys Like Us in Prison. Helena, and then The Ghost of You is just, that song is so good.
Such bangers.
Literally so good.
So we're going to go straight to the Black Parade. Now, let's keep in mind that there is a lot to this one. So we'll take our time on it.
Yeah, this album, oh my gosh. And it still tracks. It only gets better from here.
It only gets better. So this one came out in 2006. So let's go with the timeline here. The first one came out in 2002. The second one came out in 2004. And now this one's 2006. They're on the 2-year rotation.
They're on a roll here. They're like, y'all, we're making money. We are killing it. And Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge had such success. And I'm sure it was like kind of intimidating to... you know, to follow that.
To follow that, yeah.
They did it, and they crushed it.
They crushed it. So the album is considered a rock opera that's centered on a dying character with cancer known as the patient. Now, this is completely different than the past 2 albums where it told a story that was a part 1 and a part 2. So they're done with that story. They moved on. And this album tells the story of his apparent death, experiences in the afterlife, and his reflections of his new life. Now, it's the band's only studio album to feature the drummer Bob before his departure in 2010. So their drummers are coming in and out.
They're just like rotating drummers. I wonder why though. It's so interesting because like the other 4 members have literally been there, like even now they're still there, and for some reason they just couldn't vibe with their drummers. But y'all's loss.
I know, because they got big. So big that their song Dead appeared in the Xbox 360 version of Guitar Hero 2. And the 3 other songs, Teenagers, Famous Last Words, and This Is How I Disappear, were available as downloadable content. Now, Katie, I don't know if you remember, but Guitar Hero was a personality trait for me.
Yeah. Oh, I remember, Jenna.
I played that game on the daily. I would play the career mode. I had to unlock every single song in that game. I had to beat it not only in every single mode, except I think expert. My fingers aren't big enough to do expert. I couldn't go back and forth.
Your hands are very small.
They're tiny hands. So I can only do like the medium and the hard. But I made it my life's goal to beat both of them while I was in high school. And I specifically remember playing that song.
I was going to ask you if you have memories of that.
I have memories playing that song. It was a really fun song to play. And it's funny because my dad actually still owns his 360. Thank goodness, because if he didn't, I would be crying right now. And it's great to like bring it out and like have those memories of playing Guitar Hero. He still has my original Guitar Katie with my stickers that I put on there and everything.
Cute.
It's like the only thing they kept from my high school was the guitar. And can I tell you another funny fact? On the Guitar Hero one, on the back, I put a skull and 2 wings behind it. Do you know what that's for?
Avenged Sevenfold.
Yeah.
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 Yep. Love it.
I was such a nerd. Anyways, moving forward. Okay, so where was I at? All right, so the album is based on the singer, obviously, Joel Wade's notion of death appearing to be a person in the form of their fondest memory. So in this case, it's seeing a marching band as the child, which we all know that song about him going to see the marching band. The album is framed as a musical of sorts, which I can kind of see that now as he mentions that. And then following a character called the patient after the late stage cancer diagnosis threatened his life and the relationships that he held most closely to his heart. Now, throughout the track list, the songs explore his thoughts and his fears about dying, as well as reflecting on his memories of loved ones. It's pretty sad, this album.
I feel like this would be a really good like Broadway play.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they all would, but no, this album is really sad.
Really sad. I mean,
yeah.
You can tell there was a lot of reflection going on in this album. And when you do research on this, or if anyone's ever like learned more about it, you can tell that this took a lot out of them. I mean, this definitely was an emotional album.
Not just that, but like their like all the production of their music videos and their tour. Like, it was, I didn't see them during this album, but I've seen videos, and it's like, I mean, they brought out like all the stops. Yeah. And so I'm sure that took a lot out of them.
So one of the quotes that Gerard said was something that 20 or 30 years from now, parents could play for their kids and say, this is what I was listening to when I was your age. Check it out. It's still cool. And we wanted to make a record you could pass down. There's a lot of music out now that doesn't feel like that. And I get it. This is one of those albums I would bring out for my children and be like, hey, this was part of my time. And this was really good music. And I'd be proud to show them.
For sure. Especially, God, like, yeah, Welcome to the Black Parade. Oh, my God. So iconic.
And a lot of this album has strong influences from the 1970s classic rock. Particularly the Black Parade has been described as alternative rock, emo, pop punk, hard rock, punk rock, progressive rock, and post-hardcore. So a lot of punk and rock in this one, and I can see that.
I can definitely see that.
Absolutely. And then in October 21st, so I believe this was probably the year that the album was released, or maybe the following year. I didn't get a year, but the band was a musical guest on an episode of Saturday Night Live when they performed Welcome to the Black Parade and Cancer. Probably an amazing show live at SNL. Definitely intimate and really great. I wish I could have seen that live.
It's interesting that they chose Cancer.
Yeah.
To play, because it's such a like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I guess SNL, like, you can, play, like, you can play the softer songs, but that song is so sad. Like,
really sad, especially if you go from the Black Parade to Cancer, because, like, they play it on one, like, intermission, and the other intermission is like, wow, way to take things down a notch.
Yeah, for sure.
So this album opens with the 1-2 punch of the song The End and the explosive Dead, which invites the listener into the patient's world. From the get-go, you're in the world of the patient. From the second he starts having health issues and right after the end. So it's pretty morbid from the beginning. Like, he dies right away in the album.
I love the start of Dead. It's like burp, 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 burp. It's like kind of like, it sounds like the thing at the hospital.
Yeah. And then Dead picks up from the moment he dies with jarring energy that contrasts the acoustic-driven instrumental on the end. So Dead has also has a nod to the band's 2004 song Cemetery Drive, which I love. And both songs have the lyric, "Did you get what you deserve?" But on Dead, it feels much more on your face. It shows off the band's growth as they step into the next phase of their career. What do you think about that?
I can see that. I guess I have to go back and listen to like the two ways that the lyric was was presented, but I like that they did a nod to it, and I like that they kind of took it to the next level on this album.
Yeah. I was just listening to Cemetery Drive earlier when I was like going over the album, and I heard that line and it was soft. And then on Dead, you can tell that it was definitely more like in your face.
For sure.
Which
that
is
makes
pretty
sense.
cool. So the band released a draft of The Five of Us Are Dying as an alternative version to their song The Black Parade. And they've released that so you can listen to that version. And Katie, you said you listened to that.
Yeah, I had no idea what was going on. Like, I was at the gym and I was just like going through. I was like, okay, I know like every song on all their albums. I was like, let me look at like some of their live albums and their re-releases. And I saw this song, The Five of Us Are Dying. I was like, that sounds kind of cool. And so I heard like the music of The Black Parade, but it was different lyrics. And I was like, what is going on? And I was like freaking out. And then I Googled it and it was like, oh, this was like their first draft of The Black Parade. And I was like, what?
Crazy, right?
Super crazy.
The ballad Cancer, which we talked about earlier, has been a fan favorite track. Little but known to me or Katie, we didn't know that this was a cover song from 21 Pilots. Did you know? I mean, we did not know that.
I don't think I knew that, and I'm disappointed because like I've listened to the Black Parade cover to cover so many times, and then I've heard the 21 Pilots song, but it just never
It didn't feel the same.
It never connected to me. And then whenever we were, researching, you were having a full blown freak out. Like I was
having a panic attack.
I was going to take a picture of you and like post it on the pod and be like, when you find out it's a cover song. Like
I love the 21 Pilots song Cancer. And so when I found out it was actually a cover song from My Chemical Romance, I was like, everything I know is a lie.
For real. So. I love what 21 Pilots did with it though. Like
Me too.
It's so cool.
They made it so different, but so I guess what the biggest takeaway is you don't know everything. You really don't, even when you're a big fan.
Nope.
So back to the album's song. So one of their biggest hits was Teenagers. It's a commentary on how authority members treat teenagers and making fun of young people's violent reputation. Back in episode 1, I had a different interpretation of the song, so I was quite wrong about what this song meant.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I think I knew what it was.
Yeah, I was wrong, but that's okay.
That's okay.
I interpreted it the way I wanted to interpret it, and that wasn't what the album wanted it to be.
We're learning and growing, baby.
We're learning and growing. For Famous Last Words, it showcased the fear that My Chemical Romance felt during the production process and explored Gerard's feelings about the idea of his brother giving up on their musical dreams. And that I definitely understand. I can feel the emotion in that song, how sad he is, upset about his brother, trying to move on and not want to be a part of the band anymore.
Yeah, that's sad. And it's interesting because like one thing that we talked about when we were researching this, and it kind of applies to a lot of bands, but like specifically when you think about My Chem, like now that we know that like some of the songs are a part of this like big epic like storyline, and then some of them are about like vampires and some of them are about like, it's so interesting because like the way the songs are written, like you can really interpret it to be whatever you need it to be. Like when I hear Famous Last Words, like I pull it in to mean what I need it to mean in that moment, whether it's about a relationship or family. And it's so interesting how like, this album can be written about like somebody dying and the listener, interprets it to mean whatever they want it to mean. That's what I love about music is like, people can listen to it and just take whatever they need from it and then leave what doesn't apply,
Are we still going to get that tattooed? Awake and Unafraid?
I wish we would have done it before this, but now we have to.
Now we have to. We've said it twice already on the podcast, so it's kind of written or
now we look like idiots if we don't.
Okay, let's do it this summer after you get back from your trips. Okay, it's going to be very quick. It's a couple words. Yeah. You can do it.
Yeah, that's easy.
Okay, everyone hold us to it. We're getting it this year.
I love how you're like telling me like it's really quick and small. Like we both have like massive pieces. Like I'm like the reason I didn't want to get it is because I was worried about the pain.
I just mean that we obviously have no excuses. We can do it.
Yeah, it'll be cheap for sure.
It'll be cheap. All right, and last but not least on my list about this album is that the Black Parade pushed My Chemical Romance into a new direction of fame. And what I mean by that is everyone knows their first two albums were obviously more emo and definitely just like a little bit more on a smaller scale. Although their second album blew up, no one knew where they were going to take their next album, and this pushed them. I mean, this brought them to a new height. I mean, if you didn't know My Chemical Romance before, you knew them now. And I think that's what they mean by that. And they tried to stay true to their sound and focus on those stories. And it really highlights what the band does best, creating an immersive universe of lyrics and storytelling while also drawing from the feelings that are really real and present in our world. And I think Katie kind of summed that up already earlier.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting too because, I mean, just the first like 10 seconds of the Black Parade, like everybody knows what that's from.
Yeah.
Like it took them like thinking about where they were literally just 4 years earlier.
Yeah.
Like now, I mean, it's just crazy like how quickly they grew very quickly.
Like people who didn't listen to emo music knew the Black Parade.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. 100%.
And so I think like they definitely felt overwhelmed by that because now they gained the attention of not just one genre of listeners, but all genres.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's a lot of pressure, especially when you've only been doing this for like I
6
said,
years?
4 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point. Yeah.
Yeah. So my takeaway from this album, some of my favorite songs, and of course, I mentioned in previous podcasts that the album from cover to cover was obviously amazing. But if I had to pinpoint a few, it would be Dead, I Don't Love You, Mama, Sleep, Teenagers, Disenchanted, Famous Last Words.
Okay, that's like every song.
I know.
Just a few.
Just a few.
Oh my god. I agree. This just like 3 Cheers. I can listen to this cover to cover. I don't skip anything. The ones that I really like are The End, Dead, Sleep, Famous Last Words, I Don't Love You, and Disenchanted. So we like a lot of the same ones.
It's a good album.
Good album.
All right, Katie, drive us home.
All right, their last studio album, hopefully not their last forever, but the most recent one, is called Danger Days. It's called The True Lives of Fabulous Joy Kills, but people know it as
Killjoys.
Killjoy. Sorry, woo, dyslexia, baby. So this album was released in 2010. So let's think about this for a second. They were on a 2-year run usually. Now they've taken 4 years in between. So
It's a long time.
they were tired. I think they were really tired. And then like imagine the pressure of just having to follow the Black Parade.
I can't imagine. They were probably in the studio hitting it every day thinking, how do we come back from this?
Like we've just created a cultural worldwide phenomenon, and now what are we supposed to do? Like, you know? So this makes sense what I'm about to say, kind of thinking about that. The sound of this album is quite different, I would say, than their previous 3 albums. There's definitely some new elements introduced, like some kind of electronic music, a little bit more poppy. No
more emo.
No more emo. This usually happens a lot with bands. Like they try to stray out from what they are good at or what they know. And I guess it's a creative choice. I'm not really sure what the choice was here. It definitely still has a lot of like, I'm not going to say it's not emo at all, but I think they're definitely like, they're just tired. I think they're just tired, and they're really just trying to kind of.
They're more mature at this point. They have growth. They've seen fame and success, and they're kind of trying to get away from that algorithm that they've been put into.
Mm-hmm. For sure. They also kind of decided to make a conscious decision to try to take like a more, like you said, like just kind of get out of that algorithm. They kind of wanted to make it more fun. They weren't really interested in doing this huge epic production as they had just done with the Black Parade. They didn't want any characters or costumes. Like, you know, they were just kind of trying to be a little bit more chill. Apparently, this was really hard for them, seeing as how they had just created this big epic thing. there are a lot of songs that were meant for this album that have been re-released later under like a random album called Conventional Weapons, which is like a demo album that they released.
I saw that. And it's funny you say that, but did you notice they had like number 1, number 2, number 3? I wonder if that had anything to do with the Umbrella Academy.
Oh.
Because he names the characters 1, 2, 3, like,
wow.
numbers. Yeah.
We just figured that out.
Maybe.
I think we did. So yeah, there's a lot of songs that they wrote for this album that they just really weren't feeling, and you could tell they were really just trying to figure out like what their next sound was going to be like, because they had just written, the most epic album of all time. There is a kind of storyline to this album. It's not as like big and epic as some of the other ones, but it kind of follows a city in California, a post-apocalyptic world in 2019, which is really funny. Like he wrote it like 5 years, into the future, where there's a group of outsiders called the Killjoys, and they fight against an evil corporation. So not really as deep as their last one about death, but still kind of follows their track to having a storyline. And actually, he published a comic 3 years later that continues the story of this album. Oh. So if you listen cover to cover and like it's gonna leave you in a cliffhanger, you gotta go buy his comic. I
will definitely do that.
I know. I think that's so cool. It's funny, we were talking about Travis Barker earlier, like maybe he should just drum for them. This same year that the album came out in 2010, they co-headlined the Honda Civic Tour with Blink-182.
I bet that was a really cool tour.
What? Where were we? Oh, you were in the Navy.
I was in the Navy.
Where was I? Like, I was just living at my parents' house working at Auntie Anne's Pretzels. Like, I definitely...
You could have gone to this tour.
Why didn't I? I'm so disappointed in myself.
Honestly, they probably didn't come to Tampa. They probably went to, like, Orlando or Jacksonville or something.
Yeah, and back then that was too far for me.
Yeah.
Now I'll drive anywhere, but...
Now you go to North Carolina and back.
Yeah. So that's cool. So when I knew that we were doing this, I listened to the album in its entirety. Before this, I had only really listened to like I would say the hits of the album, maybe a couple more, but I was pretty pleasantly surprised. I really liked the album cover to cover. There was only a couple that I didn't really like.
Yeah.
One thing that I thought was kind of interesting is the last song on the album, called Vampire Money, is about selling out. So apparently, like, as we mentioned before, My Chemical Romance used to kind of have an obsession with vampires. And because of this, Stephenie Meyer, the creator of Twilight, kept trying to get this band to write a song for their movies. And Gerard Way specifically decided never to do that. And was disgusted by people that were doing things just to chase the money, and he was like, we're not vampire babies anymore. Like we've moved on from the vampire realm. So he wrote this song called Vampire Money as like kind of a screw you, like, I bet you want my vampire song, but I don't want your vampire money. And I was like, interesting.
Good for him.
So overall, this album wasn't really like super epic in comparison to their other ones, but people really, really liked it. They gave it really similar ratings to the first album. It's really interesting. I know we talked about this when we were planning, but all 4 of their albums were really well received. Like, yeah, and I
agree.
I think that's maybe why they stopped, because a lot of like, think of a band. Think of like Weezer. I know it's so... Did you know I was going to say this?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like, Weezer's my favorite band, guys. And like half of their albums are garbage. Like,
there are some albums that come out and you're like, well, that's a skipper.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not even going to listen to the album. But like, I think that's why they played it short and sweet and they just wrote the 4. All of them are really good. Like, all of them you can listen to cover to cover. That doesn't happen with bands. That doesn't happen with shows. Like, there's always a season or an album that just like is garbage, and that's just not the case for My Chem. Like,
every album they produced and put effort into, they gave it 100%. They weren't just doing it just to do it. Like you said, they're not sellouts. So they did it because they had a story, they had a concept, and there was, emotion behind it.
For sure. So my favorite songs on this album, The Only Hope for Me Is You. That song is really sweet. Bulletproof Heart, Vampire Money, and Sing.
I love Bulletproof Heart. Oh my
I
god, that
know.
song is the best song on the album, and I don't know if that's like everyone's favorite, but it's my favorite. I also love Sing and Planetary Go. That one has a really fun vibe to it. I wouldn't say I could listen to that one on repeat, but I definitely picked that one out because I wanted people to know that it was actually kind of a really good song. And then Summertime, it had a little bit more of a calming vibe to it.
I think the two, I think their singles were like the Sing and then the Na 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 Na.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really like that one, but
That one's that one's okay. It's a good song, but the reason why I didn't make it one of my favorites is because I cannot listen to that one over and over.
yeah, for sure. That makes sense.
But if you're listening to the album cover to the end, I'm not going to skip it.
Oh, no. It's not a skipper for sure. I just maybe wouldn't listen to it on repeat.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's take a quick break and
I was
then
going to suggest that.
great. When we get back, we're going to tell you what our favorite albums are, and then we're going to tier the albums, and then do our on repeat, and then that will be it.
All right. Sounds good.
All
We'll
right.
see you guys in a few.
All right, we are back and ready to ready to kind of wrap up this episode by talking about our favorite albums. We are going to tier the albums, which is something we've never done before, and then do our on repeats.
All right, let's get into that. Not a lot left, so not as long as our previous episodes. We have so much to talk about in the other ones. You have 10 bands to cover, so this one was...
I love how, like, initially we were like, oh, they're only going to be an hour, and then, like, our first episode was an hour, and then they've progressively gotten longer.
Okay, to be fair, like, you can talk about music for hours, like...
And we literally do, like, even off the podcast.
Even
so.
on and off the pod.
Yep.
All right, so Katie, out of all 4 albums, which one was your favorite?
Okay, overall, dude, this was so hard for me. Because I love the first one, I really do. But overall, the album that I connect with, the album that I have the most history with, the most emotion towards, is 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge.
Okay, and I'm actually really surprised by that because originally
Really?
you told me that the first and the 4th album were actually like you really loved a lot. So when you picked this one, I am a little bit shocked.
I know. I really do love the first album, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite. Like, when I think of a favorite, it's like, just like has a deeper feeling, you know?
I get it. So for me, although I do love 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge, it definitely brought out the inner goth in me. For me,
Jenna, you can't say that about every band.
I'm going to say that about every band. I will continue to say every brand, but about the inner goth in me. Okay, side note, before I tell you my favorite album, you're going to be on the edge of your seats. But my TikTok is curated for me now, the algorithm for all goth girls and goth stuff. So they must think I want to be goth because
your TikTok is so cool. Like, I'm like, we were literally like swapping phones the other day, and mine is just like, I mean, it's like cool. It's like dogs and food. It's like, I mean, it's fine, but like Jenna's is just like all these covers of emo songs and these like really like beautiful goth girls that are like, they just wear like things that I would never pull off. Like, how do you get to this side of TikTok?
I don't know. They found me and I'm here to stay. All right, back to my favorite album.
I need to know.
Back to my favorite album. It's The Black Parade. I mean, as I've said before many times, I listen to this album from back to front and I just can't get enough of it. The entire album is just so amazing, and I mean, it makes sense. It's their best album historically, as what news articles would say.
Oh,
Okay.
So did you say you listened from back to front? Because that's an interesting technique.
You know what? That's how
I'm going to try that. Let's try that.
Back to front.
Back to front.
Cover to cover.
Cover to cover,
Top
baby.
to bottom.
Well, oh my goodness. She's all in it. Yeah, so we are now going to get into our final rankings. It's a little bit different. So normally when we do bands and we tier them, we have a set of data that we follow for each band. Well, we didn't really take that approach. There's a couple of stats that I'm going to share. It's really interesting. It's the same with like movies, like when they talk about like, oh, this movie has the biggest income like in the world. I'm like, yeah, that's because movie tickets are like double the price now. You know what I mean?
So
like
how do you rate stuff now when things are so different?
It's really hard. And there was a couple like there were some of the bigger like music like Rotten Tomatoes is like for movies, but there was a couple of those websites that I found for music, but some of them didn't have all the albums, and so I wanted to find something that I like could be consistent. So I found this website called allmusic.com, and they kind of compile ratings from different like critics, and then they also do user ratings, and all of the ratings have like thousands of users. So I did that, and then I also pulled the sales.
All right, well, let's get into it.
All right. The first album that we talked about, I Brought You My Bullets, You Brought Me Your Love. Oh, should we talk about why there's 4 tiers?
Because there's
4 albums.
There's 4 albums.
I know, but normally we do like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3.
You know what? I didn't even think about that.
I think we just did like our ranking. It's more of a ranking.
We're gonna call it a ranking system for this episode, and we'll reconvene for the 10th episode.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Well, because if we do every 5 episodes as a deep dive, on the 10th one we'll kind of maybe have because if there's like 10 albums for you can't have like 10 tiers. So but maybe, I don't know. We're just gonna take it as it is right now.
Yeah, this one would be hard to tier because they're all so good. Like, so it makes, I think that's why we did like the 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes, their rankings.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So what is your ranking for the first album?
So my ranking for the first album is a 4.
Okay. I gave it a 3.
And what do the stats say?
So the stats. Okay, Jenna. She's right again. So the stats overall, allmusic.com, the rating, they gave it a 2.5 out of 5, which is not great, but not terrible.
No.
The users rated it a 4 out of 5,
which is really good.
Which is pretty good. And then overall, they had about 285,000 like albums sold in the U.S.
Again, the sales is really irrelevant because you really can't the sales are so different. Like, how could you sell this much in 2010 when 2022 is so different?
For sure. Well, and like considering how they like gave this whole album away for free too.
Exactly. But it's, keep in mind, she just said 4 out of 5. So when you listen to the next ratings, it will all make sense.
Mm-hmm. So overall, out of the 4 albums, should we do this now? The final?
No, we'll go back to it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Keep them on the edge.
All right. The second album is 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. Jenna, where did you rank this album out of 4?
I gave them a 2.
I also gave them a 2.
Okay.
And which is interesting because this was my favorite album.
This was your favorite album, but you didn't give them a 1.
No, because so exciting. Overall, allmusic.com rated this album a 4 out of 5, so that was a much bigger jump from the last one. And their users rated this album a 4.5 out of 5. So only a little bit more than the first one. They really like all of the albums.
But if we looked at the irrelevant sales, it has times 6 the amount in sales.
Yes, this album sold 1.4 million copies in the U.S. So
pretty big jump.
Pretty big jump here. All right, the next album is The Black Parade.
Let's guess what we gave it. Let's just guess.
A 1. I gave it a 1, even though it's not my favorite album, just because I know, like, overall, it's just a better, like, just better. It was done better.
In your heart, 3 Cheers is your number 1. But
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
based on the stats, Black Parade is on.
Subjectively, Black Parade is number one. Yeah. So allmusic.com rated this a 4.5 out of 5, so gave it a little bit more of a jump than 3 Cheers.
Mm-hmm.
And the users also gave it a 4.5 out of 5. So everyone was, I mean, I feel like most albums can't get a 5, but I feel like this one was pretty damn close.
Yeah. And they got just a little bit more in sales, but not by much.
Yeah, 1.5 million. And then the final album, Danger Days,
I gave that a 3.
I gave it a 4.
And the stats?
Oh, the stats are actually kind of impressive. Allmusic.com rated it a 4.5 out of 5. So the critics gave this one the same as the Black Parade.
So that's pretty interesting. That means they valued it just as much.
Yeah, maybe they were still on the Black Parade high.
From 4 years?
It is a really well done album.
It
I will give it that. And then the users rated it a 4.5 out of 5. And their sales, they dropped a little bit, but actually this is worldwide. So worldwide they sold about 1 million copies.
Wow.
So yeah.
All right. So
All right.
overall.
Yep. You go for it, girl.
Okay. Overall, if it wasn't obvious, the Black Parade stole the show with the number 1 spot. On our ranking for number 2, 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. Our ranking for number 3, Danger Days, The True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys, or Katie likes to call it Joy Kills.
The Joy Kills.
And then for number 4, I Brought You My Bullets, You Brought Me Your Love. And that was the 4 albums tiered. We will figure out the ranking system in the near future, but for now, this is what worked for today.
This is what we're doing. Love it.
All right.
Oh my gosh. I don't want to stop talking about My Chem now.
I know.
I love them so much.
I mean, overall, Katie, they are obviously an amazing band, and I had such a good time, like, researching them with you.
I know. No, this was so much fun. I'm really excited to do this again for another band.
Maybe our listeners could help us pick our number 10 deep dive, or our 10th episode deep dive, because it'd be 5 episodes from now. But yeah.
Well, we don't even know what we're going to be talking about for the next 5.
Well, I had some suggestions in the DMs from our good
Oh.
friends. So I got some genres in the mix that we will definitely go over.
Okay, great. Awesome. All right, before we wrap it up, as always, we will do our on repeats. And then if you want to check these out, Jenna will put them in our Spotify playlist, which you can find on our link tree in our Instagram bio.
Regrettably, I have to put one of these in there.
Oh my gosh, Jenna. All right, so I picked a Taylor Swift song.
You just like
Jenna-
ripped the Band-Aid off.
Jenna very outwardly does not like Taylor Swift. The only Taylor Swift song that she likes is All Too Well, the 10-minute version.
Not the short version, the 10-minute one.
Which is an amazing song, but it's really funny that her favorite song is the longest song.
Okay, to be fair, it's like a story. And you know I like stories.
It is. It's a very good song, but that's not my on repeat song. I love Taylor Swift. I don't listen to her all the time, but I just have to be in the mood. And a couple weeks ago, I went to this like Taylor Swift night with a couple of my friends at like this club, and we all dressed up as one of her album covers, and we listened to Taylor Swift all night. So I've just kind of been on a kick. This song is on the deluxe version of Evermore. So for those of you Swifties out there, Evermore is... she just released a couple years ago. It's a very sad album. It's a very somber, very depressing, but this song is a little bit more upbeat. It's called, I didn't even say the name of it. I'm just so excited. The song is called Right Where You Left Me. It's on the deluxe edition of Evermore. And I really like it because it kind of does sound like old country Taylor a little bit, which...
That's what I was going to say. It had a country feel to it.
It's not like, she doesn't have the twang, but it's very like... Ba-da-da-da-da-da. It's just kind of like all the other songs on the album are very like dark and like, just kind of depressing, and this one's a little bit more upbeat. It's just about like somebody leaving her and she's just kind of stuck, like she's right where they left her. Like she hasn't moved, she hasn't changed, she hasn't grown, she's just like stuck, like, and I've felt that way before, and I just really like this song. I'm interested to hear your thoughts about the song, Jenna.
Well, I did listen to it. I did not love it the way you love it, and that's okay. I definitely felt the country vibe from it, and that it had more of a upbeat sound to it. It was not as depressing, so that was great. I was a little nervous because the lyrics, the title is Right Where You Left Me, sounded sad.
Yes.
But it wasn't awful. Would I listen to this on my own? No, but that's okay.
Jenna does have a feeling about the fact that this song is going to have to be on our playlist.
I'm not happy, but I'm not angry. It is what it is.
At least I didn't pick like the goat one.
What is the goat one?
The Come on.
Which one are you talking about?
It's like Trouble. I'm
Oh,
lying on the cold
no.
hard ground.
No.
And then the goat. Have you seen that?
That's awful.
Do you know that?
Yeah, now I know what you're talking about. I'm like triggered.
I'm gonna send you a YouTube link right now to watch it. It's in the doc. All right,
Okay.
here we go.
And there we go. So for my on repeat this week was the band Honeymoon, or Honeymoon, however you would say it. And the song title is Too Much. They are a band that is from Cape Cod, South Africa. They have a dreamy pop sound, definitely more of an indie vibe. It's just calm. Nothing gets higher than like a 5. I feel like in the song, it's just very chill. You can listen to it while you're vibing, hanging out. It's I like the way it makes me feel lately. It's very calm. I need no stress, and it gives me no stress.
This song is very chill. I do want to point out that every week, Jenna's bands get more and more like just like off the grid. So I'm looking at this band. They have 3,000 Instagram followers.
I will find the next week's band will be a band that's like local here in Tampa Bay with 2 followers.
Like, where did you like? They have 1,000 likes on Facebook.
Yes.
Like, it's just so funny. Like, I just literally don't care. I'm like, I listen to Taylor Swift, and Jenna's like, no. Like, I have to find like these discrete bands.
If it tells you anything about our personality difference, it's on our on repeats.
Yes, very true, very true. But like, Jenna's always kind of been the one in the friendship that, like, has shown me new music. Like, I'm very stuck in my ways. Like, I'll listen to My Chem every day for the rest of my life, and that's kind of like one big part of our friendship is that she would always be like, check out this new band. So I do appreciate it. And I think that, you know, maybe we'll put some of these bands on the map. Who knows?
I hope I do. But not too much, because if they get mainstream, then I get annoyed.
Yeah, then we're not about it. Yeah. But I really like this song. Apparently I had listened to it before on my YouTube, but like you said, very chill. I love her voice. I love that it's a little spooky. I think that's like just like your vibe.
Yeah.
It just has like kind of spooky undertones, but very dreamy, like you said.
Yeah.
This is a great song that will go great on the playlist.
Yay. I'm really happy.
Unlike mine.
Oh, okay. It's going to be fine. It's not too Taylor Swift. It can be neutral.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Agree. Okay. Good. I'm glad you approve.
We approve.
We approve. All right. I am really excited to see like what people think about this episode because it's different than our other ones. And I'm really excited to hear the feedback.
Me too. So please comment on our Instagram or our YouTube, whichever place you're listening this from, and let us know what you think about this episode and maybe some feedback that you have for future episodes and what you're kind of hoping to get out of this or what you're hoping that we cover as far as bands go. Maybe we're not heading the right direction. Maybe we're too much in our box and we're not spreading out more than we should. And that's
For sure.
That's pointing fingers at me. Maybe I should be okay with Taylor Swift and get out of my box. And definitely expand.
Well,
What?
No, I think you do a good job expanding.
Okay.
You just don't like Taylor Swift. That's fine.
Yeah, true. But if we had to cover, pop singers eventually, I have to be okay with that.
True. Very true. Very true.
Because she'd have to be on the list.
Oh yeah, she would, and she'd be a tier 1, and you admit that.
I'd have to admit that.
Yep. She's honestly kind of like a tier 0. Like she's like
Stop. Okay, no, let's take it back a notch. Okay,
Like,
I accepted a 1.
Too much. Okay, fine. Too much. All right. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. We love you all, and we're really excited now that we've got 5 episodes that are under our belt. We kind of were always saying once we get 5, if we still want to do it, let's do it and really do it. So we are gonna kind of try to push this a little bit more and get some new listeners, and we're really excited. So thank you to our loyal fans that have been listening to every episode.
And thank you to Matt McLeod for the music that he produced for us on this podcast. And thank you to Michael Zola for doing our graphics. We would be nothing without either of you.
Nothing. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. We love you, and we will see you on the next one.
Bye, guys.